Okay, welcome everybody. This is our third very exciting day of the Wisdom on Wheels virtual meetup. And let me get my notes here so I can see what I wanted to say. So this is a live month-long online gathering for mature women who are interested in, dreaming about, planning, or even living in a vehicle, or, we're saying van, full-time or part-time. And the definition of that could include a car, a minivan, a cargo van, an RV of any size, pulling a trailer, a tiny home on wheels, a schoolie. There's just so many, or a short bus like Renee has, so many options. And we're here to soak in and learn from women who have stepped up to share their wisdom. So these are women who I have met on my journeys and adventures just over the last 6 months. And so if you're watching the replay on YouTube, you are invited to be part of the live event. Just look in the description below this video for a link to sign up. It's free. And if you've joined us in the inner circle, which is the VIP pass to small group connection, and some of our teachers and each other, welcome. We're putting the finishing touches on the inner circle now, so you can expect an email within the next few days from us with all of the beginning of the cool stuff that you're going to get. There's going to be more added over the next 2 months. So you may be wondering what the inner circle is, because you can still get it. It is ad-free recordings. They have ads on YouTube that are yours for life. It's bonus calls with the speakers, like designing your ideal van with Joni Zander, fine-tuning your power solutions with Ellen Vig, the power lady, a wisdom within workshop with me to turn your fear into courage, confidence into confusion and clarity, 1 month in the free WOW Sisterhood, where we keep the connection and learning and fun going after this meetup is finished, and a one-on-one roadmap session with me, where we'll map out your next steps to your goal, wherever that is. So if you want to learn more and look to joining the inner circle, I'm going to pop it in the chat, a link to that. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. This is our daily schedule. The first 60 minutes is with our expert of the day, and I'm just about to introduce her. And then the next 30 minutes is all about community and connection. And that's where we'll be building relationships with the women here that are in this group. So this brings me to drum roll. Today's featured expert is Renee Seevers. So I'm going to spotlight you, Renee. Great. And so say hello to the TinyFest CEO and founder, Renee Severs. So for her, the idea of going tiny is more than just buying and moving into a movable home. It's about sustainability, autonomy, flexibility, and freedom. Financial freedom, freedom of mobility, and freedom from stuff and stress. And it's about having fun. So the TinyFest began as the brainchild of Renee, a native of Iowa. She says that after living and maintaining a 3,300 square foot, 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom house, that is huge, she decided to sell it all after her youngest daughter was heading to college. She kept thinking it was her time to do what she wanted, and she wanted a tiny house. She bought her first tiny home on wheels, an 87 square foot home nicknamed Big R, and took it to a few festivals in 2016. She kept thinking, we need to have more of these festivals because it gives people a great way to experience tiny living, ask questions, and see things in person. That's why she created TinyFest. So Renee now lives in her short bus, the TinyFest Express, with her husband, Zev. So I met Renee just in March when I attended her TinyFest in San Diego that she holds once a year. And I introduced myself and invited her to speak in Wisdom on Wheels, and she said yes. So the TinyFest, from my perspective, it was kind of like 2/3 tiny homes, what we think of as like a little house, and 1/3 RVs and buses and schoolies and all that kind of thing. And it was interesting because I went for the tiny homes, but I found myself always gravitating toward those people in their vehicles. So welcome, Renee. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I love to help people make those right decisions as they're starting out and feel confident. You know, that's a big thing to me is really the more you, the more you talk to encouraging people, the more things that you work out, the more experience you gain, little tips and trips from other people, the more comfortable you feel in making a decision that works well for your life.
So, Renee, tell us a little bit more because you live on an interesting piece of property and yet you live in a little short bus, which is just cute as heck. And I think you've had an interesting journey in the whole like living small space.
Yeah, I did start out with a little tiny house on wheels. As you said, I went to took it to a couple of events and I was single at the time. I had an 87 square foot. So I was had a pickup truck and I pulled this little teeny tiny house, you know. So from there I did have a short bus fitted out and made into a home. So that's been really fun. I've been living in that now for a little over 4 years and have been married now for 2.5. So now there's two of us in this. It's just under 100 square feet if you don't include the driver's seat area, then under 100 square feet. So there's two of us, and then we got two dogs. So, whew, that might be putting me over the edge, but we'll get there. But we're living in that small space really well. And right when we got married, actually before we got married, we bought a property, and the goal was to be there for 2 years in the bus still, and still are living in a bus, and then start traveling again. Well, that hasn't exactly worked out. We're like 3.5, maybe coming up on 4. I can't remember. So life changes. But here we have this 160-acre property, and we rent out 3 different structures on Airbnb, but we live in a bus. So right now I'm in a little tiny house on wheels, kind of a classic tiny home, um, loft upstairs, that kind of thing. I don't live here. I don't stay here. It's on Airbnb. So I'm up in my bus. We have an off-grid cabin, 200 square foot off-grid cabin that's on Airbnb, and then another, actually like a manufactured, it's a mobile home that's on Airbnb too. So it's kind of interesting to live in a mobile structure that just doesn't move very often anymore. So, but I still love it. I still love that space. He loves it, and we're happy as can be in the bus.
So I just have to ask you, so now you have 160 acres, you have plenty of land, you could build something bigger if you want to, but you choose to live in a short bus, and maybe you can show us some photos of it. Why
Yeah.
do you choose to live in such a tiny space when you don't have to? It's a choice.
Yeah. Well, it feels comfortable to me, that small, cozy the space. It helps me keep things under control, that I'm not acquiring too much. You know, at some point I probably will change. It's hard to think about because I've lived mobile life for 9 years and I really enjoyed that. So I'm kind of at that spot where I'm like, okay, do I really want to give this up? And so it might be that, keep the bus for trips or even go to a van, right? For trips. And then have a home. But for right now, it's paid for, So if I lived in one of the 3 structures that I have on Airbnb, I'd be making less money. So it's not that I couldn't, it's not that it would cost me extra because this is paid for too, but I'd be making less money. And yeah, I still enjoy the bus. It was built just for what I wanted and has, yeah, the space just the way I like it. So
That's
yeah.
great. Are you equipped to show us any photos? I'm sure people would love to see.
Yeah, sure. Let me see if I can just share the screen real quick. These are photos of my let's see. This is my tiny house that I lived in, and it's a single axle trailer. I bought this used. It didn't meet any code or anything. It was somebody built it in their backyard, a backyard Kentucky build. And so I did not pay very much for this, but I tell people I got what I paid for. So it was rather inexpensive, but it came with some problems too. One being, you'll see in this photo that there's a single wheel well here. Um, it was too heavy for one axle. And so I had an accident in it, that one of the tires actually came off. Everything. We were so lucky in every way. My friend Brianna was with me and we were on a trip. But I no longer would take it anywhere, um, bec because of the one axle. I knew it was too much weight and it was dangerous. So I don't know if you can tell down there, but there's now I've moved it up onto a dual axle trailer. So I kind of had it, it piggybacked. And so that made it up higher like this. This is that same spot as the first one with the flowers. So it's up taller now. And there's that big R I would put on it when I was in place for a while. This is outside of my family's property in Iowa. So I really enjoy the freedom of being able to move here and there, to just try on different things and spend time in different places. So with Big R, it went back and forth from Iowa to Oregon a lot. I now have a daughter and grandkids in each. And so having family in both places, I would go back and forth a lot. And so sometimes I would travel around in this on a daily basis. And sometimes I'd go park somewhere. I'd be parked at my family's house property for a year. I was parked in someone's backyard for a year in Oregon. So it's just adding that flexibility. And I just had a little single bed, some shelves above it, a little desk off to the right. And where I am here is kind of where the kitchen was on the left side, and behind me a bathroom. So it's very compact, but well designed. So that, as I was mentioning, is a big benefit. So I guess that's almost the same picture. But it was a fun space to have. Again, very cozy feeling. And I just would put little things in it that made it my own. So
Yeah.
I have a very messy desktop, but let's see if I can, the bus. Let's open those. Okay. So this is the inside of the bus. It wasn't quite done with a few little things up in the corner yet at that time. But you can see those.
You're not sharing that.
Oh, it didn't share? Well, let's share it. Hold on just a moment. I think when I clicked off the other one, it automatically, let's see. Whew. Okay, there we go. Now, do you see it? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So in the middle, you'll see that back window, that back door that Natalie was mentioning. And on the left, the door isn't as obvious because it has a gray curtain over it. But that's the kind of basically the inside of my bus. Over on the left, between the sink and the stove, there's a countertop that I can put up across there if I want to, or I can take it down and have it, wide open. But there's that.
You open up the bed at night. You leave it
Yeah, I just pull it. Well, when it was just me, a lot of times I would just sleep on it as it was, right? I could make it, just see how wide I have it right there. That was, I just kept it that way a lot because I could sleep on it or sit on a couch. Now, with my husband and the dogs, we pull it out every night and sleep there. So, but I had a lot of fun, traveling in this, and I still do. And this is my husband and our property up in Oregon, and where we have the bus parked now. I also had a van for a short time. I was just kind of playing with it, and that was fun. So I learned what I do and don't like about vans, and yeah, just tried on some different things to see what works best for me. I'm gonna go ahead and come back to you here, I think. Maybe. Ooh. Okay. I think I'm back, right? There we go.
You're back. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So a little fun show and tell there. One thing I like to point out to people is that what you do doesn't have to be permanent. And so if you're having a really hard time, about not getting into this because you're not sure if this is going to work or that's going to work, and what if and what if and what if, what if I find someone and I've got this little place that's got a single bed in it like I did. You can't really be married and have a spouse in a single bed unless you really really love each other. I don't know. I really love him, but still, I can't imagine. And so, the tiny house that I got, it was kind of for me, it was like, this is not what I wanted, not what I was dreaming of at the time, but it got me in, and it was like a way to learn the space. So I got to get in a small space and see how I use space, what I liked, how I felt about it. Would I really want a whole lot more? Did I need a lot more kitchen? I don't need this big of a bathroom. You really learn when you're in a space and using it. So I always tell people it's great to, one of the reasons we have the events, you can get right in. We had about 25 different tiny houses there of all different sizes. I think we had 30 professionally converted vans. And then we had the Nomad Village, which had another 30 rigs of all different types. You could go in and feel it. If you can rent them, if you find a layout, you could rent it off like an RV share or some place like that. Um, and give it a try for a couple of nights, or just step in and go, just get what you can get and keep moving forward. Because by getting into that little teeny tiny house that I didn't think I wanted, but it didn't have all what I wanted, I was able to save money. I was no
Wow.
longer paying bills. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have a utilities, garbage, water, sewer, any of that. And my responsibilities went way down. Not much to clean, I didn't have a yard to take care of. And so really it opened up a lot of time and money in my world. And so I was able to move forward from there. So,
It's so great.
yeah.
So let's just ask everybody, pop in the chat, like, what is one takeaway or what is one thing that stands out to you from what Renee has shared so far? You've covered a lot of territory and you've done a lot of things, and let's just get everybody sharing that one thing. So Barb says so many possibilities. Hope says just start without perfection, just progress. Lynette says less responsibility without a home. Great idea. iPhone says that it doesn't have to be permanent. Kimberly says just go for it. Peggy says I see she tried a variety of options. Joni says I love the advice to just try things to see what works for you. And going to an event where you can get inside rigs is so helpful. Mary says, love the idea that it doesn't have to be forever. Just do it. V Press, is that Vicky? Says not permanent. Sharon says it doesn't have to be permanent. Don't see this as like one of the main things.
Yeah.
Also buy land and do tiny homes after I sell my place. Aaron says, don't wait to do it. And CGG says saving money, so go for it. That's great.
Yeah. And it, a lot of times, I think I told Natalie this story, that when I had a standard regular house, right, I saw this young couple move in across the street into this big 5-bedroom house, which I didn't have at the time, but did later. I went down that same road. And they just got married. They had just gotten married, no kids. They said, we're going to fill it with kids. So they wanted to buy their forever home and fill it with kids. They didn't want to buy twice, right? So, okay, that sounds great. And that's something a lot of our parents did. But before they even had any kids, they ended up buying another home in a different part of town because she'd been doing research and found that the other part of town was into better school district, and that was a very popular thing to do at that time, was go live somewhere where you'd be in this certain school district. So they moved to another big house. Already she moved even though she didn't want to again, to fill it with kids, and then they got divorced before they even had any kids. It was like, you know, just go with what you're doing now and go have fun and change when you need it. Upgrade if you want to. One of the things that, that I learned was that even though I thought I knew what I wanted, my life changed. I went, from staying in one place to traveling almost every day. The bus is definitely easier, I feel like, for traveling more frequently. And the tiny house was really nice for parking and being able to just drive around in my truck. So, but my life changed a couple of different times. And so, I think sometimes we put too much stress on it. Like a college student trying to pick a major, a college freshman trying to pick a major, it's like, don't worry, you're going to change your mind anyway. Just keep marching forward and find out what you like. So, um, I don't know if people are debating on what type of vehicle, like if they were going to have something they pull behind them or something they drive. I know that's a big
Let's find
decision.
out.
Yeah.
So the first question let's ask is, do you already have your vehicle, or are you looking, shopping, researching, dreaming? So let us know there. Do you have your vehicle, or are you like shopping and dreaming? So we know who we're talking to here. And of course, there'll be a lot of people who watch the replay of this, and it'll be a split. There will definitely be, probably from what I've seen, it seems like in this audience, there's maybe more people that are thinking about it than already have a vehicle. But here we've got Lori has hers, Leslie has a Forester SUV, Vicky's dreaming, Erin's been shopping, Kimberly has a minivan but would love something she can stand up in, and Barb. So we've got quite a variety here.
Yeah. Yeah. When I had a van, that was one thing that really stood out to me. I wanted something I could stand up in. And with this van, it was very stealthy. As a matter of fact, I buy weird things off the government auction website. So I bought this, was my friends called it the spy van. It was a former government surveillance van. And so it was designed for people to be inside for a long period of time undetected. Everything could be operated in there, and it was very stealth. So I tried like being a stealth camper and, park in this parking lot and places where you're not supposed to, which you almost have to do if you're in a big city. Luckily, I'm not a big city girl because that was not fun for me. And not being able to stand up also was not fun. The stealth camping I didn't enjoy as much because I didn't feel like when I woke up in the morning I could open the door and see the lights, and I just felt like I had to hide until it was time for me to leave, and so it didn't feel yeah, I didn't feel like I had much flexibility there, and I'm kind of a rules abider, so it was also hard to park in places where I knew I really wasn't supposed to park. Um, so that was a challenge. So having one you can stand up in, for me, if I did van again, that would be definitely top of the list. So
Should we ask people, like, what are your top three things on your list? Like for me right now, if I were to buy another one besides my Element, stand up. I think the ability to DIY, build it out. Like I don't really want a passenger van that's all ready, all insulated and stuff. I want a blank slate so that I
yeah,
can do stuff. And maybe reliability, like something, it would be very nice to have something that still had a little warranty left on it, but
yeah,
used. But I do want to buy something used. I don't want something new. So let's see what
yeah. Talking about reliability while you're looking at those, um, that's another difference between the different types of vehicles. Getting a van fixed, getting a bus fixed, and having a trailer, they're so, so different. Right now, my bus is not running. So it's like when you have an issue, I'm going to have it towed to a particular shop that has a tall enough roof. If you have a longer bus, you have to go to a fleet services place. Luckily, mine is just a chassis of a van, so I can go to a regular mechanic. That's been a game changer, being able to go to a regular mechanic. Um, but there goes my home, right? And so unless I go live and I have before lived in the parking lot of the mechanic's garage, or you just move out and go somewhere for a day or 2 days or 3 days or whatever. So that's something with a vehicle that you're driving that you have to consider. So reliability does, I feel like, help
So you,
improve that
you had
situation.
a breakdown after you came back from San Diego to Oregon?
Um, oh no, right now it just a problem just even leaving it my yard. It's here at my property right now. But I
Oh,
did have a breakdown leaving San Diego and going back to Iowa a couple of years ago. And I had to have a new engine put in. And then like the next day after getting it back, the transmission went out for the second time. It turns out when they did something with the engine, they didn't connect something right. So I spent a lot of time in a broken down vehicle and in in mechanic yards. And one of my best friend actually drove over from Iowa to Colorado to get me because I was tired and frustrated, and I was trying to get to an event in Iowa, and she
oh.
saved me. So um,
Well, we've got a lot of answers about what
okay,
people want. Some people want to stand up. Some people want ready-made. Others want a blank slate, straight walls, reliability and cost, big bed, self-build, extended warranty, room for two, ability to stand up and have a potty, DIY, warranty would be wonderful, reliability, gas mileage, cost effective, dependability, debt free. So that would mean something that you can pay for, fully,
yeah,
able to stand, customizable, ability to back up, toilet and stand up. So Sharon says she wants safety. So her steering wheel is in her bedroom, so I can leave fast if I need to leave if she, yeah. So
yeah,
not a trailer or something that you have to get out to get into the driver's seat. Joni says fuel economy, clearance. So I hadn't even thought of clearance, reliability, comfort, being able to stand up and stretch, and versatility, dependability, stealth to a degree, and has to have good gas mileage first. So we've got a lot
yeah,
of variety. So
yeah.
What do we do to get the vehicle that meets our main criteria?
Yeah. Well, I think some different things to think about. How often do you want to be driving it? Are you going to go somewhere and stay? This is a consideration. Okay, first I'm thinking about let's split between I drive it like my steering wheel is in my living room, right? A van, a school bus where you're driving, you just hop in the back, or something you pull, because that's then a totally different, they're very different feels. So, you know, how often are you going to park and stay somewhere? If you have a trailer that you're pulling behind, whether it be a tiny house, a camper, a utility trailer that's been turned into, a tiny home or, nomad living of some sort, when you are able to unhook and then you have a vehicle like your truck or whatever you've been pulling it with to drive around, that's a really nice freedom if you like to run errands and go to town and go here and there. And, I'm kind of a busybody, so I would do that a lot, like to unhook. If you're traveling with it, though, one thing to think about is when you stop somewhere, you do have to get out, go around the vehicle, get in the other side. And if, sometimes that isn't always the best for safety wise, right? That's something that people go, oh, I just remember one time very distinctly not feeling as comfortable where I was. And when I got out and walked around, I felt like I was like this big billboard that says, hey, there's a single woman by herself, because nobody else got out and walked around with me. And so everyone could see, that I was alone, what I looked like. And it was apparent I was staying overnight. And so most of the time, that's not a problem for me. I haven't been in situations I haven't felt safe. If I was, I'd leave, but I really haven't run into that. But that one time it did kind of strike me. So if that's something that, that you're like, oh, nope, don't want that at all. You might go for one that you drive in. And if you think, oh, I'm not going to be putzing around all over town all the time. I'm going to go somewhere and hang out there for a couple of days or do a lot of walking or biking. Then something that you drive could be great. One little thing that I love when I drive is that I can just pull over on the exit ramp and go to the bathroom real quick. I don't have to get out and climb around and go around, and stop and walk out. I don't like getting out of my vehicle on the side of the road. So it's super easy to just pull over on an exit ramp, grab a bite to eat, pull over in any spot you want and go get a little food, go to the bathroom without much hassle, without going around climbing up and getting in. Um, so those were a couple of the
Let's find out.
things to
So
consider.
drive or pull? Share in the
Yeah.
chat. You want to drive your home or do you want to pull it? I'm
Are you
guessing.
asking me?
Yep.
No, asking. Asking everybody to put.
Okay.
I'm guessing everybody's going to say
Yep.
drive.
Drive. Yeah. Yeah. And so then if it's drive, if you're not sure, again, try camping in a couple different ways. Go to take a couple little trips, try traveling, I should say, in a couple different ways, and see what works. Now, if you're going to drive it, then you want to consider, if you've narrowed it down that way, how large of a space do you want? And there are the trade-offs, right? The larger space you get, the more room you have for stuff, right? Maybe you have an area for a desk and maybe a bigger kitchen, a bigger bathroom, whatever is most important to you, you can kind of get that in there. Maybe you need a place for a hobby that really makes your life happy. So the larger vehicle you get, generally the worse gas mileage. And as you get bigger and bigger, it can get more challenging to find a mechanic for things that are beyond a regular van chassis. And so those are a couple of things to start thinking about. Okay, do I want more space and more stuff, or do I want better gas mileage? Again, that kind of sometimes comes down to not just your budget, but how much you'll be driving. So if you are going to be going, somewhere new every day and you've got a large vehicle that gets bad gas mileage, then, that's going to start adding up there. So those are some things that can be like, oh, I'm leaning more toward the gas mileage side. I can get rid of some of my stuff. If you have a family or you like to take people with you on your trips, or you just really like having a space. Some people like having a living room that is not their bedroom, Yes, like sit down on the couch that's not the same place you sleep. Then you want to start looking at something, then probably a mid-size bus in order to do that. So I think if there's
Kind of separate out the spaces.
Yeah. Now with a van and a minivan, they're really, you don't have the choice to expand on a particular area as much. There's only so much room you can make for the bathroom, say, or the kitchen. You can't expand a lot. But as you get bigger, you can say, okay, I'll keep the small bathroom, but I'm making a larger kitchen, or vice versa, or I'm going to have a bed and a living room. Couch or chair or something like that. So you can kind of take the area of your life that's most important to you, or most, helps with your happiness, then you can expand on that particular space a little bit once you get a little bit bigger. So, or you just expand it outside, right? Put your living room outside or your shower outside or whatever, if you have the weather. Yeah, if you have the weather, that's a big deal.
And a lot of people do that with minivans and with even like SUVs and hatchbacks. They have a awning or a tent structure that connects to the car, and they have a whole little like home, spread out, not just car.
Right. That does get a lot of packing up to do when you want to leave.
Packing up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like I said, giving it a little try can really help you determine how you use space and what space becomes most valuable to you. Sometimes you'll know if you love to cook, you are going to want more of a kitchen. That's the way it is. If you have a hobby that really brings you joy, then you're going to want a comfortable space in order to do that in. But if you're not sure, trying a couple different things works, but also you can kind of do like a no build. I don't know if you've seen where you have, and you can do this a lot of times with a minivan, but even any other kind of vehicle that's not finished, if you're going the DIY route, put some cheesy kitchen setup in there. Put some shelves that are, you know, unfortunately they're not the really pretty ones with the cabinet and, you know, the exact size you'd want, but you can just put some shelves as where you'd have food, where you'd have your food or your clothes, and see, is that enough? You know, and it's probably not going to have the aesthetics that you want in the long run. But once things are built in, and once you buy something that is complete and maybe it, you know, was already professionally done, it's really difficult to change the layout. Like really difficult, almost impossible, right? To change much of that layout. And so that is one thing that you know, if you can get it right the first time, then it's great. I think people more often will change a vehicle to change the layout. You know, if they decide I want more of this or less of this, they have to change the rig, or I do not like the way the bed comes out into the couch, you know, or vice versa. Then there's not a lot of room to move things move things around, and they're built in. So, you know, that's where you'll want to give some extra thought to how much space you need for particular things.
That's really interesting about people, because once something's built in, it's so difficult to change it that people will actually sell the vehicle and get a new one so that they can have what they want.
Yeah, yeah. Both my little tiny house, apparently I didn't learn from the tiny house because I did the same thing in the bus. I built a little desk in there. I never sit at that little desk. It's like this little cubby, you know, and it's no, I go sit on the couch or on the countertop. And the same with my tiny house. Like I said, I didn't learn apparently. I didn't sit at that desk. I grabbed my laptop and sat on the bed.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes when you will use the space, even if it's in an unfinished manner, you'll learn. Yeah, I don't want to sit that way, or I don't want to go over there, or you know,
Yeah.
two burners is plenty. You know, this is good news. You could just learn so much about yourself
Yeah.
just by going and doing it. So
Well, I'll tell you, I have this desk. I teach from this desk because it's a better view in the back and all that stuff. But do I ever sit here and work? Never.
no, yeah,
I take my laptop and sit on the couch when I'm working. I mean,
yeah,
but anyway, hey,
yeah,
Renee, there's a couple of interesting comments about
yeah.
pulling something behind. So Joni says a trailer is an inexpensive way to start if you have a vehicle that's rated to pull it. So this is great because a lot of
That's
people,
true.
the hurdle feels so big of getting the ideal vehicle that they want, that if
Right.
they have the capacity to pull a trailer, it could be a very inexpensive way. And
Yep.
Mary says, I decided I wanted to pull a trailer because I like to stay several days to a week and be able to go to the store, sightsee. So she's talking about
Yep.
unhooking. I'm thinking, Mary, unhooking, leaving the trailer there, and then go look around.
Yeah, that's both great points, and they can be the most inexpensive if you already have that vehicle, you know, that can pull. The other thing is you can always resell things, right? So even if you buy a truck or a vehicle that can pull the little trailer, when you're done and you say, "Oh, I tried this, I didn't like it," then you can sell the vehicle again. You know, I always say if you bought it used for $6,000 or 10,000 or whatever, you know, you have to do, then you can probably sell it for that or close to it unless you've put a lot of wear and tear and damage. So it's kind of you know, a little bit of a low risk situation, and the pull behind trailers are very inexpensive. So that can be a great way to see, does this work for me, and how do I use space? What do I like?
Yeah.
It's a great way to get in. And once you get in, then you're making those savings, right? So I had a job at the time when I bought my tiny house. It was kind of your, you know, standard 9 to 5-ish job that I was working for someone else. And so suddenly I was getting the same paycheck, but my expenses were down to, you know, nothing. At one point, I just had health insurance and car insurance and cell phone. That's it. So when you have money coming in and your expenses are so low, so if you're having a hard time saving up for the van that you want or the one of your dreams, you know, this is a good way to jump into something that might not be your dream. And again, if you're buying if it's not the one that's the perfect one for you, then I hate to recommend, if it works for you, I would probably buy a used one, because then you can, get that experience, figure out what you want, and then resell it. Whereas if you buy something new and then go to resell it later, you're gonna lose a lot of value. That we know that at our age from buying and selling cars. It's the same way. The value is going to go take a jump down. So, um, you know, like I said, that's another thing with not permanent. Just sell it and get a different one. It's
Yeah.
possible. Yeah.
Let's have you answer Peggy. Peggy asks, if you spread out and then have a safety issue overnight, can you still drive away quickly?
Yeah, that gets to be a challenge. So I don't have a lot of things that I spread out. I think that, maybe at night, if you can kind of compact things a little bit, or unattach. So I've seen where folks will go and they'll set up a 10 by 10 pop-up tent, or something of that nature, and then put a bunch of stuff under there, and that kind of becomes an outdoor living room. Then if there is an issue, you can drive away. Probably don't want to drive away without your tent and some of your things, but if it's important for your safety and your health and happiness, drive away. You can always go back, right? So having an awning, if you have an awning, I would think at night you'd want to put that in. So if there was some kind of an issue, you could just pull away without ruining, the awning. That gets a little challenging with the side things that come out. I forget what they're called on a camper, when they have the things that come out on the side, the slides, I think. You have to bring those in before you can drive. But yeah, so I guess it all depends on your comfort level. And I don't think I would stay somewhere where I was worried about it. I was like, I'm worried about having to get out of here real quick. That might be a red flag enough just to say, well, then don't stay here. I mean, there's a lot of places, but things do come up that we never anticipate, you know? Um, and so, yeah, you could hurt yourself and need to get going. And so I think if you are just prepared at night to have an emergency, to deal with an emergency, don't have one if you can avoid it. So, yeah.
Well, how about if we let people pop in the chat? What kind
Yeah.
of vehicle do they have, or what kind are they considering? Like if you know the make and model, great. Or if you know kind of the general category, so we can just, and I know a lot of people on this call already have their vehicle. Like Lynette has
Yeah.
a ProMaster, Joni has a Sprinter. So and Joni says she keeps everything put away in her van. But if you like setting up camp, it's just stuff. So drive away if you feel,
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
If I was parked in a place where I felt the least, like if I was parked in a place where I don't know anybody and I feel safe enough to overnight there, but not that I would want to be seen and all of that, I wouldn't leave anything out. I just wouldn't leave anything out so that I could, if I felt at all unsafe, I could just drive.
Yeah. A lot of people do, set up quite a camp. And if they love that's great. I've never been one to haul things in and out, but we all get to do this our own way. And that's the brilliant thing about it, is you get to do it your own way. If you're not sure what your own way is, you get to find out. And that's always fun. That's good. Find out some things. You'll find out a lot about yourself. I think, through van life, and just I found it so much easier to make life improvements when I don't have all the other stuff hanging around. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, we got a bunch of vehicles here. We have
Yeah.
a Toyota Sienna, a VW Atlas SUV, a Ram ProMaster City, Joni's in a Sprinter, Karen's in a Sorrento for now, would love to get a bigger Transit. Mary's in a hybrid Toyota Highlander with a tow package and a 13-foot fiberglass trailer. And Peggy has a Ford E350 or a 250. And it's like a standard work van. Erin has a CRV. It's set up for car camping. She's almost convinced she wants a van, but not sure she can configure it how she wants. Sharon has a Nissan NV200 cargo van. Her
It's a lot of minivans.
28, changing tent was 15, not a big loss. Okay. Yeah, Deborah has a 2006 Chevy Express E1500 cargo, just empty right now. Vicky is leaning toward a minivan. Hope has a Subaru Outback. CG has a Prius. And Maggie is starting in a Transit. So we have got quite the variety.
Yeah,
What are
quite
you
a
gonna do?
variety. A lot of minivans, though, a lot of vehicles. That's exciting to see people. I have not gone that route. I think the van that I had, which had been kind of your standard looking cargo van, was the I guess the smallest, really, because they tell you when I had the trailer behind me, I felt like I had a lot of room. I had the pickup with the back seat and the back of the pickup and the little tiny house, had space too. So, yeah, the van. I struggled though, not being able to stand up. Again, I was doing stealth camping, so if I were somewhere where I was living, parking somewhere where I felt really comfortable getting up and out, if I was out in nature a lot, uh, I felt comfortable getting up and out and stretching and getting ready outside rather than trying to, do all of that indoors in the van and hide. I think I would have felt better about that.
Yeah.
So
Mine is actually quite challenging climbing from the back into the driver's seat. It takes a large amount of flexibility and like physical dexterity to get my body wrapped around because it's not really designed for that.
yeah, keeps you
But
young.
do it. But the other thing is in an Element, the Element has, obviously a front door by the driver, but it also has a mid door. And
Mhm.
you cannot open the mid door unless you first open the driver's door, which
Yeah,
also takes a lot of that to get at and then you've got to
yeah.
anyway, it's a something. Some people have rigged up something to open the driver's door
Hmm.
board or something because it's a deal.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I know what you mean because my truck was that way. You have to open the front, and if it's hard to reach that, um, these are all things to consider. So, if folks that I'm curious, the folks that have their vehicle now and they're living it, are they looking to? Are they think about changing? Are you looking to maybe do something different, or are you good with what you have?
That's a
And
great question. Let's ask.
yeah,
Are
yeah,
you good with what you have and then put like colon, what is it? Or are you looking to change?
yeah.
Uh,
One thing I think about, which I think sometimes people don't remember you can do. If you have a van, such as the regular cargo vans where you can't stand up, you can always put one of those. I don't know what they're called, the extension on top. You've seen them; they look like they have an extra bubble on top.
like a
You
high
can
roof,
have
something
Yeah,
they
you can put that on a regular van. And so that's a really good way to get into van life too without, paying for a Mercedes Sprinter or, a ProMaster, because those do get expensive, is to get just a regular cargo van. You can find them pretty inexpensively and then have one of those tops put on and you're at a fraction of the cost, but able to stand up. Um,
yeah.
We have at TinyFest, we have folks that bring in their converted ambulance, like I said, converted cargo trailer. Ambulances are really nice to convert yourself because a lot of it's done. There's countertops in there. There's a bench where you could make it into a bed um, or have one couch like mine that you can pull out. There's already cabinets and there's water. So it's kind of like things have a good start for you, and so they're easy to convert if someone's looking for something like that.
I
Um,
had no idea. I just knew that Bob
yeah,
Wells was like raffling his off. He had it at the
yeah,
RCR and people could buy raffle tickets or whatever. I just thought it looked like I wouldn't want to drive one of those things. It's just
yeah.
too big. It's too wide.
That's
I'd be crashing into things.
there's another consideration we talked about length is width. It's amazing the difference between just a standard vehicle and say my bus, the back of my bus is another foot or foot and a half wider. And it's, wow, that can make a big difference in how the space feels. I like, my bus is a 5-window, and the buses, a lot of times they'll call them by the windows, you know, the shorties are 4 or 5-window, mid-size, usually 7, 8, or 9. And then beyond that, the big one, big long ones, I guess they just stop counting and they say, oh, I have a 35-footer or a 40-foot, you know, they go with the whole length. But so my 5-window fits, barely fits in most standard parking spots. So that is nice that I don't have to, you know, park clear out down the street, because some places just don't have room. And that can be a challenge when you're towing. You know, you go somewhere and you've got something behind you, or you need more parking spots, or you have a big long rig, you need more parking spots. That can be a challenge. Though I have people that are like, I don't mind at all. I love all my space. I'm happy to park down the road and walk 2 blocks if I have to, you know, or more. So it, you know, it's all a trade-off and customizing, you know, to what works good for you.
So Renee, is there anything else you want to share before I open it up to people asking any questions they have for you?
You know, I don't think so. I think I've, you know, kind of gotten the point across that I love is, you know, you can do this. You might not start in your dream spot, but when you start and get going down that road, you can get down that road faster, I think, and more accurately, because you're gaining experience along the way. So when you finally do get to your dream van or your dream situation, then you know, it's, your dream may have adjusted along the way, and you're meeting it as you go. So that's great. And just, you know, knowing that you can, and that there are people here to support, and places you can find support and help and advice, and yeah, not feel like you're odd for doing it. You know what I mean? That's one of the things I loved about TinyFest, is I felt kind of like, at the time, it was 2016 in Iowa, I was like, I feel like a fish out of water. Am I the only one that loves tiny houses? You know, and people that came to that event were telling me the same thing. They're like, oh my gosh, it's so great to meet other people that understand, and you don't have to answer all these, like, why don't you just do this? Why don't you get an RV? Why would you want to live in a small space? It's like, you get past those questions, and you get to the good stuff when you're amongst people that are like-minded. You know, you can really talk about the valuable things, rather than just defending your decision, or wondering if they're going to think you're crazy.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's one of the things people appreciate about this space, is that they're
yes.
among like-minded women.
Yeah.
So put in the chat any questions you have for Renee. There, you may have asked a question before that we didn't answer, that she didn't answer. So put it in again. Pop any questions that you have for her before we finish this part.
I know you have some topics coming up on how to make money on the
Yeah.
road or in a vehicle, and that's really exciting. We get a lot of questions about that at TinyFest, and so I'm looking forward to hearing those, because there's so many options.
Yeah, there's options, and
It's amazing how many options are out there for people. So don't let
I'm not
that
sure
stop you either.
what I'm not sure what are all the options that Kristen is going to cover. I'm going to cover the options that I use and
Yeah,
I'm familiar with, because
yeah,
you know, there's so many options. I haven't done them all. Okay, so we've got
right.
some questions for you.
Okay.
Would you suggest an Airbnb company, or do you manage yourself?
Oh, for mine, I do manage them myself, because they're right here on the property where I live. And so that's my goal, though, is not to be a maid. You know, I don't want to spend all my time. I would like more bookings, because that means more income, but that also means, you know, I'm cleaning. So I hope that I can get to the economies of scale, to where I can find somebody that will actually stay here on the property, maybe in their van, and clean the tiny houses as their job. And but for right now, it's just me. So
You know, that would be great. I'm sure that there would be van life people that would like to do that, to
yeah,
be able to stay for free and maybe get power and water, and in exchange clean, you know, when the Airbnbs turn over. You
Yeah, it's a challenge finding that. I've put that out there a couple times and I have a message out there right now. I need to share it more often, but my daughter's having a C-section, so I'm going to be going to Iowa for pretty much all of August. Well, that means that there's no one to clean the Airbnbs at a popular time. Um,
yeah,
I love my husband. He's amazing, but he is not a cleaner. He's not a cleaner. You gotta really be dedicated to making it look just right for Airbnb, and that's not his forte. So I'm hoping to find somebody that wants to stay here and do a little bit of cleaning.
yeah, huh.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put that into my hopper and see if there's a way I can think of to help you get the word out.
Yeah.
Okay, so Erin wants to know if you use your Airbnb as your domicile.
No, I live in the bus. We live in the bus and are there full time. So I won't let the dogs come into the Airbnb.
It's possible that she means the legal domicile. Like
Oh,
it's because she
hmm.
used that word.
Okay, gotcha. Nope, I don't do that either because there was and there is a 1975 single wide trailer on the property when we bought it. And we thought it was going to be in terrible shape and we'd have to tear it down. And we went inside and found out it's actually pretty nice. Whoever maintained this 1975 trailer did it impeccably. So that's the domicile, I guess you'd say, and that's also short-term rental. We call it the retro lounge. So I did it up in 70s colors and designs and flowers because what else do you do with a 1975 mobile home, right? So
So
yeah.
that's like your legal address, is that
That
right?
is,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The tiny house is actually not a permitted structure. I don't think that, yeah, they don't know it's here. Neither is the cabin. The cabin is small enough, and they might both be small enough that they qualify as not needing a permit, but also unpermitted structures shouldn't be lived in. So there might be a gray area there. I'm just riding with it, right now. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's fine till somebody tells me otherwise.
So
So
Peggy, you ask, is there a tiny fest or similar on the West Coast? I consider San Diego the West Coast. Maybe are you thinking more like the Pacific Northwest? Do you know of any other tiny fests in the West anywhere?
nowhere. So there used to be several types of events. The ones that are Tiny Fest are from myself and my best friend Tracy, who's an amazing partner to have in this little adventure. And those, if they say Tiny Fest, they're from us. But we're down to just doing one a year now in California. And the other companies that used to do them are all kind of dying off. I hate to say, I don't know, they might all have different reasons, but the Colorado ones are gone now. There used to be one that would come around to Portland every now and then. It's gone. I think the one of the Florida ones is going away. So
Mm.
it's us. Yeah. So you got to come to Tiny Fest next March. Yeah, Southern California.
What are the dates?
March 8th and 9th. I think it's 8th and 9th or 7th and 8th, 8th and 9th in yeah, in Southern California.
I highly recommend it. It was super fun. Met a lot of great people, well organized. Renee had it really well organized and, not so many hours that it was totally exhausting. I think it was like 10 to 5, something like that.
Yeah, 10 to 5. And we do have a nomad village. So if you already have a vehicle, you can jump in and be a part of the nomad village. Those folks, stay, usually they come in Friday night and they stay till Sunday night or Monday morning. And they get to stay on site. They open up their doors during the day and they get to show people, their home, it whether they built it or whether they bought it, they're, proud to show that this is their home and how they've made it their own and how it works for them and their way of living and just being able to help people and give them answers and ideas and support. And so that we love the Nomad Village for that. And so those, like I said, you can join us in the Nomad Village too. So you get to hang out and after the show closes at night, we have a potluck one night and we have pizza one night and
Great.
just get to know each other a little bit.
So Renee, is there a link where people can sign up and get on your email list so they can get notified about your next Tiny Fest? Can you put that in the chat?
Yeah,
Or,
sure.
yeah.
Hold on just a moment now. So we have just a better idea here. We have a link tree, and it can go if you can sign up for the okay, I know Tracy's on here. Tracy, will you put it in for me? I'm terrible at multitasking, and I just sent that link. It's on our Instagram, but also I think she'll probably put it in there for me. That
Yeah.
link to sign up. If you go to the website www.tinyfest.events, there'll be a spot there, so I can put that in here.
All right. So while that's happening, oh, good. Thank you,
Oh,
Tracy.
there's Tracy. Thanks, Tracy.
Please, everybody take a moment to acknowledge Renee in the chat. Let her know something that you appreciate about her, something you learned from her, something you admire about her. Because it's, it's a labor of love that she did this for all of us. And it just feels so good to hear that. So while people are typing that in, I'll share with you. So Renee, I'm just impressed with so many things that you have done. I mean, first of all, that you had that tiny home vision really before it was like a thing, and you took off and did it. And then I'm really impressed that you started the TinyFest and that you have kept on doing it year after year, even when the other ones have dropped away. I love that you bought that property in Oregon and you've got these tiny Airbnbs and you're still living in your bus. I just think you're a very cool woman. And, I want to be like you when I grow up.
Thank you. Thanks. It's been fun. It's nice to know that, I can create the life that I want. And it might not always 100% be, when things aren't going so well, I tell myself I have the choice, right? And it's like, I am tired of pulling this bed out, of this composting toilet's having an issue, and whatever the problem is. I'm feeling cramped today. And I just tell myself, well, I could probably just go back to living in a regular apartment. I mean, I'd probably have to go get a regular, 9 to 5 job and a car, and I'd have all those bills again, and then I'd be stuck in one place. And I'm like, nope, I'm fine. It's good. I'll deal with this problem. I'll deal with feeling a little cramped. I'll clean the house. That'll make me feel better. It's nice to just remind yourself you're not stuck where you are. You have options. And sometimes just acknowledging those other options and the consequences that come with them are enough to make you feel pretty darn good about what you have going on. So.
That's great. That's so great. So let me share some of these. Joni says, great info. Love that you were an early adopter of tiny living. Erin says, thank you, Renee, for sharing your tiny living wisdom. Mary says, so generous to share your experience with us newbies. Deborah says, loved tiny home info. Thank you for sharing. Hope says, thanks, Renee. Impressive with doing it when it wasn't popular, and love that you have property that makes income. Barb says, thanks for sharing your knowledge about the different types of living options. Karen, thanks for sharing your experience with us newbies. Sharon says, I appreciate that you're sharing options that may work for all of us. Thanks for reminding us that it doesn't have to be forever. And iPhone says, I admire your share and encourage others. And Vicky says, to me, Natalie, that's exactly what I was thinking. I want to be like Renee when I grow up. So helpful. Thank you, Renee. Peggy says, Renee, it was wonderful to hear of all your experience and advice. Thanks for sharing with us. Lynette says, you're accomplished and very energetic. And Teresa says, you're very encouraging to me to know what is going on with the tiny living. Thanks for sharing. And CG says, thanks for all the information with everything. So very good. Well, now we're going to switch over to the community and connection part of our call. So I'm going to stop the recording here.